Welcome to the Sean Chandler Podcast, a place to talk movies and nerd culture way too much. Today we're recording this podcast live straight to YouTube, and joining me as always is Griffin. Griffin, how you doing?
Hey, it's going pretty good now, it stopped raining and it's not overcast, so I feel like it's just, enhanced my mood tenfold, so I'm feeling great. I'm ready to talk some movies.
That's good, because we've got a whole bunch of movie news to talk about. Since we're live, we'll get a little bit of interaction with the comment section, so keep chiming in on all the things we're talking about. At the end of this, we will take some of your questions, and then we're going to close this one out with a fun little editorial on what movies have we walked out of, since yesterday was the 20th anniversary of the release of one of the movies that I walked out of, and there's a whole story behind that of why I walked out of American Psycho, even though the movie itself is quite interesting and fun. So today we're going to be talking about Sam Raimi confirmed for Doctor Strange 2. My voice just cracked. We're like a minute into this and my voice cracked. John Krasinski meets with Marvel. Disney hires a director to work on a live-action adaptation of their version of Robin Hood, which has like foxes in it, which will be interesting. The Dune Pictures first set have been released to those. Trolls World Tour debuts straight to rental on the internet and made quite a bit of money. Tron Legacy, there's still a possibility for a sequel. We've got Gary Dauberman, a guy that's worked on the It movies. He's worked on Annabelle Comes Home, and he's lined up for Salem slot. And then Bob Iger returns as the CEO at Disney. So there's a whole bunch of stuff we're going to talk about. Everybody in the comment section, be sure to tell us what you think about each of the subjects at hand. Likewise, as we kind of go into this, if you have a super chat, we'll do our best to kind of respond to those. And let's go ahead and get started talking about this first little story that it is now confirmed Sam Raimi, director of the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy, is going to direct Doctor Strange Into the Mouth of Madness, the second one. We've known this for a couple of months. It seemed pretty locked that was going to happen, but it didn't seem like it was in question. But then when you have Sam Raimi coming out himself being like, yep, that's happening, it's a done deal. Like it's actually locked in. Raimi is returning to Marvel to direct another property. And so kind of my quick take on it, I mean, I can only get excited about this. Say what you will about Spider-Man 3, it has its faults, and there's reasons for that. He's the guy that, in a lot of ways, just set the template for what we do now. That first Spider-Man movie with the tone, how big and popular it was, because X-Men were hit films. The first X-Men was a hit, but it wasn't a mega hit. Spider-Man was a mega hit. I mean, he just, everything that we know that these MCU films do now as just gigantic tentpole films, that goes back to Sam Raimi and his Spider-Man movie. And he has an extensive horror background. He's weird. He's a really weird guy. And so the idea of him doing Doctor Strange, him returning to Marvel, all of that just sounds really good to me. And even to the extent that some of the bigger criticisms of the first Doctor Strange is that it was a little bit too formulaic, too much of the Marvel template. They got the origin out of the way, and you've got a guy that's got a lot of clout in Hollywood. And if you hire him, you know you're going to get something weird. And so they want that. How about you? What's your take on all this?
Yeah, well, I mean, like you said, like, when that, I believe it was a Variety report, when that came out and it basically said, oh, Disney or Marvel is like courting Sam Raimi to do the new Doctor Strange film. And like, it wasn't confirmed. There weren't like comments or anything like that, but it was like, when it comes out of Variety, it's pretty substantial. And like, I guess now that he's confirmed it, I can say that I knew this was going to happen, because I have a friend who works for Sam Raimi's production, or I have a friend whose friend works for Sam Raimi's production company. And basically they were not thrilled that thing leaked before he was ready to say that he was signed on to that. So like, I'm just that Sam Raimi is now out there basically saying, hey, I'm doing Doctor Strange, and it's kind of weird that we made a joke about it in Spider-Man, and now and now I'm going to be directing it. It's he's really the perfect choice, I think, and he's honestly the only name you could have announced that would have gotten me excited about Scott Derrickson leaving the project, because everything about Scott Derrickson leaving really put a bad taste in my mouth and really caused me to question what Marvel was doing.
Right, exactly. Like when they said he was leaving, it felt like, oh man, they're not going to do horror. They're just going way too much into their formula again. Like, and I think we'd even said, are they just going to get a journeyman director? They're just going to get some guy to fill the shoes, some generic guy that will do what he's told, and it'll be slick. And then Sam Raimi, and you went, wow, you did it. You did it. You found the one guy. Like, so I wouldn't have guessed that, but it makes so much sense in another way. So yeah, totally.
Yeah, no, agreed. And you know, he probably would have signed on to do it, but I wonder if the fact that the film got pushed back kind of like pushed him a little bit more to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm gonna do this. Granted, I don't know when this interview actually took place, the interview that we're referring to where Sam Raimi actually was like, yeah, and now I'm directing Doctor Strange too. It was just a very like offhand comment.
Right.
I don't know when that took place, but like if it was recently after Disney announced their release date schedule shuffle, I could see him being like more enthusiastic about taking on the project, because now he has time to actually like do the story that he envisions and bring to life his, you know, put everything that he's got into it. And I believe there was like even something circulating around where it was like the production designer from Oz the Great and Powerful was like being brought on to the film. And like, while I don't like that movie, the look of that film is stunning. So I'm really, really excited to see what Sam Raimi can bring to the table. And I hope this is all I ask. I want it to feel like a Sam Raimi film and not an MCU film. You know, if you have someone like that, my God, milk him for everything that he's got. You know, like.
And if you're doing this experimental phase, like where they know these are not going to do the numbers that they did in phase 3. So let them like earn that credibility, earn the weird experimental stuff. So be like, Sam Raimi, here is $175 million with Doctor Strange. Make it strange. Just go.
Yeah, we got literally. Yeah,
go for it. Madness is in the title. Have fun. That would be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So people chiming in the comment section. Red Panda says, I was so mad when they announced Scott Derrickson was out. I was really looking forward to the first MCU horror movie. We were right there with you. But Sam Raimi, this is the guy that did Evil Dead. I mean, people getting chopped up in a cabin in the woods. Like, he's the guy that brought a bunch of that about. So we still could get that horror film inside the MCU. Let's see, other comments in here. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is going to be the best sequel to Doctor Strange, but if it's by Sam Raimi, we're tracking with you. He's a great pick. So, moving along to our next subject at hand. So, a couple days ago, it was reported that John Krasinski, Jim Halpert from The Office, as well as husband to Emily Blunt, and many, many other things, director and star of A Quiet Place, director of Quiet Place 2, person who many, many of fans have speculated fan cast him as Mr. Fantastic, and maybe dreamed and hoped that he would, in fact, direct Fantastic Four, and he said publicly in interviews he would be interested. It's reported he had a virtual meeting with Marvel Studios about many potential projects. So that's kind of the full report. We don't have a ton of information. It's not any sort of confirmation of anything. So we don't know exactly what that means. But for all the people out there speculating, all the people out there like dreamcasting Fantastic Four, there's a little bit more hope that, in fact, John Krasinski could end up being Mr. Fantastic. What's your take on that one?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of like what he could have met for outside of the Fantastic Four, because like you said, he like nothing indicated that is exactly what he was meeting for. And if he was meaning for Fantastic Four, I think that's going to be a dream come true for a lot of us fans of the material and whatnot. I mean, he's been fan casted since like I don't know, for like the past decade or whatnot. It's like him and Emily Blunt.
Right.
It's like, oh, they have to play them. And I think they do a really good job for sure. There's a reason they're being fan casted. Like, it's not just based on looks. It's like based on talent, abilities,
and their vibes. Their vibes.
Yeah, and
like that's one of the ones
exactly.
So like John Krasinski for a long time was in the running, or he was kind of Chris Evans and him for Captain America.
Yeah.
And obviously it went to Chris Evans, and everyone's like, that's amazing. And Krasinski himself has been like, yeah, that would have been why would you cast me when you can get what we just got?
Yeah, exactly.
And when I hear that, like, I've always thought that John Krasinski, he just has a cartoonish look to him. Of course, handsome.
Yeah, he's very like an everyday guy, and maybe a lot of that stems from just like the guy he played in The Office, but I think that's just who he is. He's a very genuine, down-to-earth person.
And he doesn't, like, to me, I don't see him as Captain America at all, even though, like, now we've seen him in, like, 13 Hours. We've seen him jacked, and that's not to say he's not handsome, but he doesn't quite have that all-American just look that Chris Evans just so perfectly does as Steve Rogers. But Mr. Fantastic, this everyman scientist guy, that just feels perfect. Like the vibe that he can give off where he can be heroic. We've seen him do that. Jack Ryan, 13 Hours, but then also playing smart. Someone that has great chemistry with the people around him for a team movie, not someone that feels like they need to be in the center stage. Like, he has all of those things, and then you could just look at a picture, like any of these Photoshop pictures of him with just a little bit of gray on the sides, and you go, oh yeah, that's like straight out of the comics.
Yeah, he can do it.
Someone in the comment section, Paul said, I think that John Krasinski is a little bit too old for the Fantastic Four. Now, I mean, I'm not quite sure. I don't know your context for saying you think he's too old, but Reed Richards in the comics, historically, I mean, he's got gray on the sides. So, I mean, they might have to add that to John Krasinski to give him the look. So, like, he's not too old for this specific character. The comic book characters, you could cast him. He's about 40. He's just a little bit older than me. This seems perfect.
They're not going for like the Fantastic Four babies that like, Josh Trank was trying to do. Which, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that interpretation, but it just looks like they kind of want to go a more traditional route, which I really hope that's what they do. And I'll take it a step further. I hope they set it in the 60s, and I hope they tie it into the Ant-Man films that way, with like, Hank Pym going out on secret missions, and maybe he works with Reed Richards and stuff. Like, I think that could be really fun. If they made the Fantastic Four like a time period piece, and it would explain like why they haven't been around, because Reed Richards is like the smartest guy in like Marvel history, arguably outside of like Hank Pym, and so like why would he not be around for the events of the MCU? Well, because their prime time was in the golden age that took place in the 60s or whatever. I don't know, something like that always just like has really excited me. But
I love that pitch right there. We talked about it before, like X-Men First Class. I love that it is kind of that 60s vibe, and if you do that with Fantastic Four, even that almost kind of has some of the fun elements of The Incredibles if you do something like that. And I've said it many times before, I would love to see more of Hank Pym, Ant-Man, and you just proposed a way you do it without needing the full movie of de-aged 75-year-old Michael Douglas, where you just have, 15 minutes where they do like a mission with him. That sounds so cool. I love what you just said. All right, we got some questions. I'll throw them to both of us. Let's go real quick on this one. What if John Krasinski, Noah says, what if John Krasinski stars and Peyton Reed as the director? Is that a good match? I think his vibe fits Fantastic Four. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, you can look at the Ant-Man movies as like the MCU's Fantastic Four stand-in right now, but I would not want to see him for that. I think you need someone like a Brad Bird, go get Joe Johnston back. I think he'd be perfect for it, especially if it's a period piece. Those are my picks for right now. Peyton Reed just isn't someone that has that initial like flair and style that I think you need for a Fantastic Four movie.
Next question, perfect for you. What about Leigh Whannell directing Fantastic Four?
If you want to go in more of like a horror route, like sure, maybe. I don't. I mean, I can't. I can't inherently like envision him like directing the film. It feels like an odd choice. Maybe if they
Right.
were going like the Josh Trank route
Right.
again, then perhaps. But no.
And if you guys don't know, Leigh Whannell is the person that directed Upgrade as well as Invisible Man. We love him as a director. Strange fit. And Griffin got to interview him. We shared a clip of that about a month back. Final question, and then we'll start to move on to our next subject. Paul says, Matt Damon as Mr. Fantastic. I think he's too serious. I think John Krasinski has a little bit more of that. You can believe him as heroic, but he also, you can have the oddness, the fun side to him, where Matt Damon seems a little bit more intense. He's done comedies, but by default, he's a more intense guy.
I would say he's also just a more famous person who's been in more things, and so then you're carrying that baggage into it. And like, yeah, John Krasinski was Jim on The Office for like 9 seasons, but he hasn't really like crossed over into film the way that like Matt
With a
Damon
franchise,
is,
with
like,
yeah,
exactly. Like Matt Damon is Jason Bourne. He's like been in a whole bunch of other films since then too, and so like Krasinski doesn't have that attached to him, especially because people don't really watch Jack Ryan that much anyways. So
yeah. How dare you? I
listen. I love that show. I think it's great.
I love it too. I mean, because I grew up watching the Harrison Ford movies. Love Clear and Present Danger. I don't really have any criticisms of the Ben Affleck one, Sum of All Fears. I didn't like the Chris Pine one really too much at all.
Yeah,
but I'm in a big Jack Ryan fan, kind of as long as I've been into movies, and then Jim Halpert starring in it, big fan. So anyway, that's a recommendation, everybody. If you're looking for something to binge, if you like spy espionage stuff with action, check out his Jack Ryan show starring John Krasinski. We'll close out with one more comment. Here we go. Neek Nerd Geek says, why do people want Jim Halpert to be Mr. Fantastic? He's already Jimmy Woo in Ant-Man and the Wasp. I forgot about that. I forgot that he already appeared. Nice standout role in that film. Just scene stealer, super funny. If you guys don't know what he's referring to, look up The Office Asian Jim, and you will understand what that reference is. But yeah, it's a nice little joke right there. All right, next subject at hand. It was announced just a few days back that Disney has hired a director to do a live-action Robin Hood remake. It's the director of, was it Blind Spotting? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, Blind Spotting. Yeah.
So I haven't seen it. I'm not familiar with it. But so I'm really just evaluating this on the concept of they're calling this a live-action remake, where I mean, at a certain point in time, we need to come up with a new name for photorealistic CGI remake. Because when you...
Well, I think you just came up with the name for it, Sean. I think it's right there.
But, I mean, just the idea that, like with The Lion King, the criticism was that it's so photorealistic they have no emotions because they look like actual lions. Incredible technological achievement, but you did it, therefore the movie has no emotion. You'd say that. I'm not sure I would say that, but it's certainly a valid point. If you're taking Robin Hood as a fox dressed like Peter Pan with a bow and arrow, we're no longer doing photorealistic where like it might look like a real fox. It might be incredible, but you're seeing something that's clearly a CGI thing occurring in front of us. So right off the bat, I'm like, as a person that's defended a good number of these, like I'm the guy that gave Lion King a B+. Ever since rewatching Aladdin, and since it's been on home video, I've probably watched Aladdin 10 times this year because of my kids. Like my wife did not want to watch the movie when it was in theater, not interested at all. And then she heard some of the new songs. She's like, why are we adding new songs in? And Jasmine was already a strong character. And then she watched it and she's like, okay, I kind of love this. This is pretty great. So 10 times. I'm the Defender guy, but Robin Hood, it doesn't make any sense. What are we doing?
I don't know, because it's like if there's one property that's like oversaturated the market more than anything, it's Robin Hood. I mean, since the birth of cinema, even with like some of those Errol Flynn movies, like Robin Hood has just been like people keep like filmmakers keep going back to the story for some reason for different interpretations, and like
and they're not
a
working.
lot of
they're
exactly
not working.
they don't work, and they don't like they're either too boring and too serious, or they're too campy, or they're too whatever. And I think the original Disney animated, I believe it's a 1973 animated musical one, stands out above the rest because it is different, because it's a lot of fun. It tells the story in a faithful way, but it's got musical numbers, and it's played by anthropomorphic animals, and it's animated. And so like that's really
Right.
other than maybe like the Kevin Costner one, or like some of the Errol Flynn movies, like that is
Right.
really the gold standard for like Robin Hood films. And it pains me to say that, because I really wanted the Russell Crowe one to be good. I just don't know what the hell Ridley Scott was doing with that
It's just crazy.
that movie. It was a
Dude,
drag.
Here's something crazy. I mean, like, I
Yeah.
love the Kevin Costner one. I mean, that's like,
Yeah.
I was like 10 when it came out. And my mom's like, I'll let you see this very violent PG-13 movie. So, like,
Yeah.
I'm that perfect age. And there's some things about it that are really great.
Mm-hmm.
And then anything with people with swords fighting each other, love it. Gladiator, I love. I've never seen the Russell Crowe Ridley Scott film. Because everything I've heard was it's boring. It doesn't do anything.
It's so boring. Even like the unrated director's cut doesn't really change it that much, which is disappointing. But anyways, getting back on track to this, I'm conflicted, because I hate, first of all, I just point blank, I hate the concept of the live action remakes. Like, there is no point, because you can go back and rewatch the originals, and there's no way they're going to be able to recapture the magic of those originals. Now, I say that, I think there are a few instances where the films could benefit from being, turned into live action, like a film like Atlantis, which is like an hour and 30 minutes,
Right.
and it's like really expansive,
Right.
and it kind of compresses like what could be an amazing adventure story.
So I'd never seen that until I
Oh.
watched them for a ranking last fall. Watched it for the first time, and that's exactly
Yeah.
what I thought. I was like, this is the one that needs to be remade because it's underwatched. Like,
Yeah,
people haven't. It wasn't a big hit, and you watch it and you immediately see how this works as an Avatar-like film. Of people going off to this other world, big battles.
Yeah.
Like, you just see it immediately how this would be a better film, live action with 45 more minutes. It's all right there. It's obvious.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not a big hit. It's a really short movie, so it's like there is so much that they could have explored in a live action adaptation. But anyways, getting back to Robin Hood, I'm conflicted because the 1973 animated Robin Hood isn't among the most beloved of the classic Disney animated films. Like, people know it, and it's definitely gotten a resurgence in popularity, but I find that it often gets lost in the shuffle and forgotten. So the notion, just based off of that information, the notion of remaking that movie makes sense to me, to bring it to a new audience, because it is one of the more lesser known films. So it's like, I like that mentality, not with that film, because we've seen Robin Hood a million times before.
Right.
The CGI animals mixed with live action, like, what are we going to get? Sonic the Hedgehog, or are we going to get the Lion King? Like, I don't know what kind of like design they're going to have for these creatures, and if it's just going to be the same movie, I don't really want to see it again, because apparently this, reimagining or whatever is going to do like the same musical numbers and all that stuff. The only thing that gets me slightly intrigued in this is the fact that they're tapping the director from Blind Spotting, which is that film is one of the most underrated movies of the year it came out. I don't remember. I think it was 2018. But that film is fantastic, and if they get someone like him doing this, I could see them maybe infusing it with some of the social commentary that comes with Robin Hood. Hopefully, it's done in a way that's tasteful, similar to like what he did with Blind Spotting. But I don't know, man. This one isn't doing it for me.
Yeah. All right, quick super chat with comment on this one from Guy at the Movies. He says 3 Robin Hoods in the last decade. Why another? Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Bad.
and as we've already kind of discussed, it's not even just that they're giving us too many, which they are. These aren't big hit films. We haven't had a big hit film one in 30 years. They keep failing at it. So what are they even looking at being like, oh, everybody keeps failing at doing this. What if we give it another try? It's actually kind of like the Terminator Dark Fate situation of people are just fried on them going, we're going to do another sequel, but it's going to ignore the other ones. This one's going right back to the first two. People are just fried on that. And so then this Dark Fate comes out and nobody goes and sees it because they're just tired of Hollywood sending the same movie that people aren't asking for. And now they're doing it with Robin Hood. Same exact thing. Mm-hmm. Real quick on this person that sent this particular super guy at the movies. I give a big quick shout out to him. He's over on Instagram. His name is Guy at the Movies, and he interviewed me over on his Instagram channel, and his name is just Guy at the Movies. It was pretty cool. Did a little live deal on Instagram, and I've never done that before. I was like, I love this. I need to start doing this. I need to find ways to do this with other people because this was just super cool. Now the bad side to it is I was supposed to go live with him at 6:00. And then because time doesn't mean anything anymore now that we're all locked at home and I'm homeschooling my kids, I was like, children, I will be a great teacher. I will teach you about nature by taking you out into the world. So I just took them down to the creek and we're just wandering around and I'm teaching them about all this stuff. And then I went, wait, what time is it? And they're like, yeah, it's 6:15. I was like, 6:15 kids. Pick one up in each hand, sprint back home. Jumped on to do this live deal with him last week, 20 minutes late. So very publicly apologizing for it being like that. But check out his movie review channel over on Instagram, Guy at the Movies. And thank you for the super chat on that one. Did you have any final things on Robin Hood?
No, not for me. I mean, a lot of people are asking, what do we think of the Lilo and Stitch remake that's being made for Disney Plus? What do you think is the worst Disney live action film? I guess it should be noted that this Robin Hood one is going straight to Disney Plus. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if that really changes anything, but maybe it won't have the budget to do some of the crazy spectacle that comes with Robin Hood, which is a little disappointing, but it's also Disney, so they could probably dump the money into it if they really wanted to. But
then again, after the year 2020, who has money anymore? So who knows what's going to happen?
Well, Disney just prints their own money. That's just how it works, right?
All right, real quick super chat from someone. Azim the Dream reviews. How would you rank the Jurassic Park franchise? So I have a video, so you can have my more detailed version of it. I don't think I would agree with whatever I said before. I think as of right now, I think I would. I don't know. That's a tough one. I really need to rewatch them. At the top is the original one. Then it's Jurassic World. Then it's Lost World for me. And I'm not sure whether I put Jurassic Park 3 or Fallen Kingdom at the bottom. I'm not really sure. How about you?
You ready for this controversial ranking?
Whatever, because I know
Jurassic Park. Yeah, right.
I know you love Joe Johnston. I know you're a defender of Fallen Kingdom, so this could get interesting. Two wildly different lists.
I think it'll surprise you on a few fronts. Jurassic Park, The Lost World, Fallen Kingdom, Jurassic World, Jurassic Park 3. I think Jurassic Park 3 is terrible, and I love Joe Johnston.
What? How dare you? How dare you?
It's so bad.
And so underdeveloped. It feels like they had an idea, and they're like, oh man, we're out of time. Let's just go for it. So it's the most straightforward. It's 90 minutes long. It's weird.
Oh yeah, bizarre movie, and also the talking. I get it was a dream, but the talking Velociraptor in the plane was just what are we doing here? Yeah. Come on, guys.
All right, moving along to our next subject. Yesterday they released something like 5-6 different photos from the upcoming Denis Villeneuve Dune. So we get our first real look at what this thing's going to look like. And I mean, a bunch of different characters. We're on beaches. We've got people in these space suits. We've got people with nose breather things. So we got a variety of people or pictures showing us a bunch of different stuff. You're probably more excited for this one than I am. What's your take?
Yeah, I mean, it looks great. It looks very much like a Denis Villeneuve film. The images are just really striking. The color, it looks like it's going to have excellent cinematography. I'm really excited because I think it'll be the first time that we get I feel like this film should it succeed at the box office, which is a completely different question, will be like the birth of the next big like sci-fi series or franchise. And I'm not talking like a Star Wars kind of one, not like a populist kind of series, but more of like a Lord of the Rings kind of series, because that's ultimately what I was getting from this. There were a lot of like Lord of the Rings vibes. A little bit of Game of Thrones, which is obviously Lord of the Rings inspired. And I think it's going to have that epic feel, mixed with just Villeneuve's, really poignant, but like complex and cerebral sort of like storytelling. So it looks great. All the pictures look great. Timothée Chalamet looks amazing. Josh Brolin, great. Oscar Isaac, the internet is thirsting over once
going
again.
Nuts.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love to see it. So I can't wait for the movie.
So I actually have very little knowledge of the source material. I haven't read the book. I haven't seen the previous versions, and so then all I know is that it's not actually like Star Wars. It seems like at first glance it would seem like a Star Wars, but it's not like this big fast moving space adventure. It's not that. And then you get Denis Villeneuve doing big sci-fi epic. Makes sense in light of his last two films, and so it's right up his alley. So I expect to feel about it the way that I feel about Blade Runner 2049, which is to say, very cool, very well made film. Not something that I'm going to rewatch a whole lot, but something that I think was very enriching to experience. That's incredibly filmed, gorgeous looking. And so we got a bunch of people asking. A guy named Oscar says, how do you think it will perform at the box office? I would assume it's going to perform like Blade Runner. That's what I would guess.
Yeah, that would be my guess. I feel like if they market it properly, like I think this film actually does have a leg up on Blade Runner. Whereas like Blade Runner, you're already like Dune is a very niche thing, but with Blade Runner, you have like a previous film, and then people are going to be like, "Oh, it's a sequel to that really niche '80s movie that I really that I either don't remember or have no desire to watch." Yeah, I'm going to pass on that one. Dune has a chance to establish a new identity for itself, and so if it comes out with some excellent marketing material, I think it could perform well. But just given Villeneuve as a filmmaker, he doesn't have the box office draw that some other people do that has. But this could be the film that really puts him on the map for that. I do want to say one thing. So there was people might know of Robert Meyer Burnett. I think a while ago he talked about on his show a leaked script of Villeneuve's Dune that had been going around. He gave basically an initial impression, and just to kind of give like the listeners and the viewers a little bit of information as to like what the movie's kind of shaping up to be. Basically, he said that he's thrilled with what he's read, saying it's a fantastic adaptation of the source material. It's very adult and it goes for it. The script spends a lot of time with Lady Jessica and Paul Atreides, which if you are familiar with the novel, those are like two of the main players in the film. It's gotten major Godfather vibes from reading. He got major Godfather vibes from reading it. It completely expands all the characters, deep dives into it. It's very heavy on the world building and universe building, very intellectual, and it kind of takes a page out of the Lord of the Rings and Man of Steel in its opening prologue. A lot of great action set pieces, but it's definitely still got that signature like Denis Villeneuve cerebral feel to it. So that's, take that as you will.
Yeah, it's sounds exciting. Sounds like its target audience will love it. And having not, like I said, not knowing the source material, I don't know how much I'm the target audience for it. And that's where it's a little bit tricky when all you see are pictures that it's like, okay, they're gorgeous. It looks cool. And it managed to look very sci-fi without looking cheesy at all. And it can be a tough balance. And so that's all good. But at the same time, when you don't have that trailer to really kind of capture what is the experience of this movie, it's tough to really know. Even gauging box office predictions, like if I see a trailer and I go, like, this just looks like something that'll connect with a lot of people, or you see it and like with Blade Runner, I was like, this looks gorgeous, but you have to be in the 21st century. You have to be able to get a lot of people to show up to justify that $200 million budget. And this is not it. This is not the movie that current audiences rush out to go see. So I have to see a trailer for this one before I'll have a good way to expect it. And even like from my perspective, Blade Runner 2049 didn't really underperform at the box office for the actual target audience. It underperformed for the budget they gave it. Those are two different things. That movie making, 40 million something like opening weekend, that felt pretty good to me. That's like, for this movie, the people that are supposed to see it, that's about right. But it cost an amount that you need to make 100 million opening weekend. You need 80 million opening weekend to be able to justify that. So I think it was a budget thing, and whether the studio was okay with that, like, we're going to make a masterpiece that gives us clout and gets us this guy right here that we all know is super talented to stick with us. If that's what it was, or if they just wanted to take a risk, and that's a good thing. We should encourage studios to do that and not berate them when they take a risk on something. It pays off when it comes to the film itself. So I just don't know if this one, I don't know if it'll be, I wouldn't expect this one to be $1 billion film. I expect it to be really good. I expect it to continue his reputation and get the studio some clout. Maybe this is even another one.
Yeah.
It's a December release. Are we thinking they're going for Oscars?
I mean, I think with someone like Denis attached, you're automatically going to go for Oscars. I mean, even Blade Runner 2049, while it's not an Oscar movie, will go for Oscars. Yeah. I'm still not 100% convinced that it hits the December release date, because I don't know if Tenet gets delayed, then it's not hitting it. But if Tenet hits its release date, then we're looking at Dune coming out in early December, in which case I'm very concerned for that movie, and I think it could get buried. Yeah. I really think it could get buried. So either way, I think it would behoove them to just move that film into 2021, put it in a prime release slot where it can actually, like, stand a chance at making a lot of money. When do you think we're going to get a trailer? Or do you think we're going to get one anytime soon?
I think every studio is just pushing pause on trailers because they don't want to market a release date that's immediately changing. So I think everybody's just going, let's put some pictures out there so we can get people thinking about us, talking about us a little bit. But I don't want to do anything that locks us to a date. I don't want to spend money on something. 'Cause, I mean, you think how much a trailer costs to create and put it out there for everybody to see, the way that they try and do some of that. And just for a date that's, if you send out a million people, or let me pause. If you put out a trailer for Dune, let's say it gets 10 million views, which on YouTube, it's probably about right for that movie. 10 million people see the wrong release date. That's 10 million views worth of misinformation. So I think everybody's just kind of putting a little bit of pause, especially with something like Dune that's like 6 months out. It's over 6 months out if it hits that original release date, and if it's going to get pushed back 3 months, then it's a year out. So I think there's a lot of that where everyone's saying, I don't know if we want to start promoting stuff yet. Like the big rumor that yesterday we were going to get the Venom trailer, and I was like, why would they do that when everything's so much?
Yeah, I can't.
Flux.
Yeah, we probably won't even start getting trailers until midsummer or something like that.
The ceremony or the middle of the actual summer?
Yes.
All right. Real quick, important question came in the chat. Headcanon, Battle of the Beards, Oscar Isaac versus Sean Chandler. If you guys, It's a great question. If you guys didn't notice, I actually, and this is not a lie, I actually pulled out my brush to pull out my beard to look as ridiculous and quarantined as possible for today. So I'm actively trying to play up the fact that I'm becoming a weirdo hermit with crazy, crazy hair. Every video I'm trying to make my hair a little bit crazier, but so that's my play for Victorious. But sexy Oscar Isaac. Man,
you just can't beat him. Like, I'm sorry, you just lose. Like, everyone loses. Like, if you're not Oscar Isaac, you just lose.
It's true. And that pretty much applies to everything, in which case
literally everything.
I don't think I can win on that front. All right, real quick, we just had I can't see it just yet. Had a super chat come in from, looks like we got more Jurassic Park discussion. Azim the Dreamer Review says, I love both Jurassic World movies. They do feel like Indiana Jones movies set in the Jurassic Park universe with action adventure. Jurassic World Dominion will go back to being a sci-fi thriller. Can you name a favorite scene from each film? I love the original Jurassic World for its stupidity. And so that final showdown with Chris Pratt,
Oh yeah,
the Raptors, and the original T-Rex versus genetically engineered monster, that level of stupid, I ate that up. Jurassic World, I the stuff that popped out to me that I thought was just really well done was when it was a scary thriller. It did that really well. So, like when Pratt's on the ground and you see the lava coming towards him, you feel it a little bit. And he can still make that funny. But there's just a lot of those sequences that just actually had thrills. What were your favorites in there?
Yeah, from the first Jurassic World, I would say yeah, from the first Jurassic World, I would say I love like the Raptors chase where he gets on the bike and they're like running through the jungles.
Those are the two, yeah, for me.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then in Fallen Kingdom, that the entire like escape from whatever the name of the island is, that whole thing is just superb. That's excellent. And then there's just a lot of like fun, creepy moments in when they get to like the auction house in Fallen Kingdom that are just like super J.A. Bayona. So I love that. I love that stuff.
And we had someone ask, do you think Jurassic World will work without a park? I mean, I think that's yes, I think that's a limitation at a certain point in time where we feel like we have to keep going back to the same place. I think that's what has hurt them in certain sequels where, Jurassic Park 3, let's our justification this time for why we're back at Jurassic Park. That's not very interesting. Jurassic World, they found a new reason for it to happen and do something different with it. So it's an actual park with people at it. That's interesting, new, and different. But I think when you're just like, okay, it's abandoned and we're going back, that's where it starts just to feel like, what are we doing? We're doing kind of the same thing again. So I think if you do open world dinosaurs or whatever they're going to do with it, I think absolutely they've got a fun set of characters, especially if we can get Grant actually involved in this deal. I don't want that, like the Jeff Goldblum cameo that they put that in the trailer so prominently, and that's basically his whole screen time. I think that kind of leaves you with a bad taste in your mouth. I don't want them to do that with Alan Grant, but we've got a great set of characters. We've got dinosaurs. We've got cloning. There's fun to be had.
Like Planet of the Apes with dinosaurs sounds like it could be a fun idea. I don't know if you saw this in the chat, but like they're they something just reminded me of something that just happened. So Josh Trank's new movie Fonzo with Tom Hardy, that it was just announced that they're changing the name of it to Capone, and then they're just dropping it onto VOD. So it's so Josh Trank continues his trend of just continuing to go down a downward spiral.
Okay. If you guys, if you're looking for someone to follow on Twitter that does like whatever's going on with him, it's entertaining to watch. But when he's on Twitter, it's just him like picking fights or saying hot takes. So he left. He rejoined last night. Now I guess we know why. And it was just him. He didn't leave like an actual status update. He was just commenting on stuff. And it would be like, hey, Josh Drake here on return to Twitter for a random conversation with someone that didn't have any context. And then him chiming in kind of aggressively. Oh, classic Josh Trank.
Dude, he's just, he's done.
And if you don't know Josh Trank, he's the director of Chronicle and then Fantastic Four from a few years back, and apparently melted down on set, and that's one of the reasons the movie didn't come together very well. So in just a moment, we'll kind of move on. We've got several more subjects to cover, but we had a super chat come in from Eric Thorpe. Says, what do you think will be the biggest box office film of 2020? I feel like this year it's hard to say, especially with all the delays, but even putting that aside, it's hard to say no Endgame level movie, I mean. So thank you so much for the super chat. Greatly, greatly appreciated. It is really tough to say because, as you mentioned, we don't even really know what's coming out. And it's not a year where there was a super obvious frontrunner like Endgame or a Star Wars movie. Last year, I mean, there was just so many heavy hitters that you could predict would break $1 billion. and this year's just not like that. And then, then we got locked down and theaters got shut down. So before everything happened, I still wouldn't have had a good guess. I still wouldn't really know who I would think would have the best chance. Because, new Christopher Nolan movie, but it's not tied to a franchise, so it's a little bit uncertain. Like, it'll be a hit, but is it $1 billion hit? We've got a couple of MCU films, but they're not the ones that immediately you think obvious $1 billion films. Wonder Woman, that one seems pretty safe bet that one's going to do big numbers. So I think my bet would be on Wonder Woman, but it is tough to say.
Yeah, I'd probably have to say Wonder Woman, but I don't even know what it would be. Okay, so before this whole thing happened, I'd probably say Wonder Woman with No Time to Die as like a close second.
That's right. That's what I missed that one. That's true. A good Bond film is $1 billion one. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. Now, I mean, Wonder Woman does stand a better chance of actually still making the same amount of money it was going to make because it's opening in August with nothing around it, as opposed to literally every other movie that is opening in November and December. And so like their profits are going to be just sliced in half. But if we're talking about the latter half of the year films, which is literally where all the big movies are coming in, I still think No Time to Die stands a really good chance of making a lot of money. And probably Top Gun Maverick. That I think those two will be the biggest grossers of the second half of the year.
You think Maverick will be a top grosser?
I do, especially because it's in a like in the December date, like coming out around like Christmas and whatnot, and it's like a franchise that people know and love, and it looks really cool. So like I can see that doing well.
Now, there's a little bit of a follow up to this before we kind of move on. Had someone mentioned in the comments, 2021 will be big for the box office. Yep. It was already looking to be a huge year. Whereas like 2020 was like, okay, 2019, insane numbers. This year was always going to be like a bit of a reset. And then with all the stuff that just got pushed over there, it feels like 2021 is going to be insane at the box office. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving along to, speaking of insane numbers, Trolls World Tour debuts to big numbers on rental. Now, I read the article from Deadline. I don't feel like I know how much money this movie made. Because I don't think they've officially... No, I
definitely don't, yeah.
They've officially announced it. And so I read the article, and my takeaway was it made more than what these other movies made in their opening day. It did better than what those ones did before. But then, Grace Randolph, I believe she said in hers, she read it and she said, this movie made $90 million opening weekend. And I did not read the article and take that away at all. And had it made those numbers, they would have just said that. And so that's where I'm like, it's weird to me that, I don't know if it's a comment on how poorly written the Deadline article was, or how they're not really releasing numbers. They're just Universal saying things to make themselves look good, maybe to save face. But I had people tweeting at me like, hey, did you hear that Trolls 2 made $70 to $90 million from rentals? I was like, I don't see that at all. That doesn't sound likely. I do not believe that is a true statement.
Yeah.
And then I read the article and it was so unclear. What was your kind of take on some of that?
My take on that was that people are still interested in seeing new movies, and that they're willing to spend $20 on Trolls 2, which is kind of a big shocker.
To rent it.
Yeah, not even to buy it, just to rent it. I think what it comes down to is just families needing something to entertain their kids, and like, oh, here's Trolls. We haven't seen this before. Yeah. Let's just pop it on so that we can, parents can get some, peace and quiet or whatever, or maybe just have a family movie night or whatnot. I don't know if I believe the $90 million mark. That seems a bit excessive.
Yeah, it sounds crazy to me.
Yeah, I do believe that it probably did well on demand. That doesn't sound too far fetched, and I think it ultimately it shows that people are willing to do this whole like rent movies for 48-hour period, just like going to the movies sort of thing. And so like this could end up having an effect down the road on the theatrical window and whatnot. So it's weird. We're going to look back at this, and Trolls World Tour is going to be the film that kind of in a bizarre way changed everything, which is just kind of nuts.
It turns out to be a really important movie for the simple fact that it gives studios objective numbers. Where up to this point in time is kind of guesswork. You don't know what the general public will pay. And that's even kind of the debate where I had people messaging me like saying like, well, they've crunched the numbers as businessmen. They know that, that was the right number to charge. It's like, they actually don't. Nobody knows what the right number is. Nobody knows what people will pay. And it's also a question, what will they pay right now? Like for me, I review movies for a living. And I looked at it and I went, I am not going to pay $20 to rent this movie to review it. I'm just not going to do that.
No way.
It's not really my target audience. I didn't like the first one, and there was some stuff in it that I wasn't crazy about some of the humor for my kids. And so the idea of me paying $20 to review a movie I'm not very excited about, I just wasn't going to do that. If I could have bought it for $20, or even they said, you'll get your digital copy in 2 months when we release it, you can only watch it for 2 days right now, I might have. But just to rent it, like I was unwilling to do that. And when I saw some of these numbers and that any way you spin it, it had really good numbers. I don't know if it's 90 million, but it's really good numbers. Its first day rentals were above Endgame's. That's incredible. And I mean, the article said it's like 10 times. Like my interpretation was that it did 10 times what Endgame did. In a weekend, it did 10 times what Endgame did in a day. That's how I read the article, which would be like 30 million is what that would mean. But other people read that to say that it did 10 times just period what it did, which would be 90 million. That's the discrepancy in how I read it, which I think the article is just poorly written if I can't interpret it properly and people are reading very different meanings on it. But I was surprised that many people would rent that movie.
I know. Of all movies. It's
All right, we had a super chat come in just a second. We'll move on to talk about Tron Legacy a little bit, but super chat come in from John Early. I'd like you and Griffin to explain your feelings on James Wan's Aquaman. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Explain why as well. So, for me, I had fun with it. It's cheesy, it's corny, but it does it intentionally. It's like Aquaman's goofy, so we're just going to embrace that. And I think the thing that won me over is that the action is shot really well. It's wide, long takes so you can see what's happening. And, a bunch of charismatic actors just having fun, doing ridiculous stuff. So I just had... It's a Taco Bell movie for me. I kind of use that phrase on my channel. It's cinematic fast food. It's easy to digest. That's what this movie was for me. How about you?
Yeah. It's just a fun, swashbuckling kind of adventure movie. Great visuals. There are some questionable creative choices in it. Obviously, like why in God's name a Pitbull cover of Africa was playing when they emerged from the ocean still just baffles me. That is just one of the worst decisions ever.
You're just watching the movie, and then it just cuts to the ocean. You're like, whoa, what just happened?
It is genuinely just one of the most mind-blowing studio exec decisions I've ever seen. Because that was a studio exec decision. It's fun.
And like 2 scenes after that, then they cut to another pop song playing as they do like a montage of the villain building his suit with pop music playing. You're like, what movie are we in? Where did
really
this come
weird
from?
Yeah. I don't even know. It's just totally strange. But it's like, other than like those weird, just questionable moments, I like it. It's a lot of fun. I actually think it's it might be my 4th favorite DC film. I think for me it goes Man of Steel, Birds of Prey, BVS Ultimate, and then Aquaman. Or I forgot Wonder Woman. Yeah, Wonder Woman, BVS Ultimate, and then Aquaman. So 5th slot.
That's about the same as me. I think I have BVS and Aquaman swapped, but That
Yeah.
they're two different. They're two very different reasons why they're in the middle of the pact. It's a make very different set of mistakes, and they do very different things really well. All right, next subject we have on here. The director of Tron Legacy gave some interview quotes and talked about Tron Legacy, which came out 10 years ago, and they've been hinting, suggesting, greenlighting, canceling a sequel to Tron Legacy since the first one came out 10 years ago. So once again, he just gives kind of another interview, giving more kind of hope, but more kind of like, I don't know, maybe could, maybe not. And he basically says it's possible. There's conversations. It's about a lot of stuff. Everything has to come together at the right time for it to actually happen, and that's what always makes it tricky. So how did you read the comments that he made? And how do you feel about Tron Legacy?
Well, I love Tron Legacy. It's one of my favorite movies of the last decade. I really, really like that film, and I was upset that it never found the audience that it deserved to find. The Tron's movies as a whole, dude, are like some of the most underrated films like ever made. And it's shocking that the lore in the world has never resonated with more viewers, because if it just, the possibilities are endless. You're basically in this like world that's on the internet, or a video game. Like, it's, you can do so many interesting things with that. I mean, it's basically Ready Player One before Ready Player One like happened, but like it's original, and it's
without cheap pop culture references though.
Exactly. So it's like, if something like Ready Player One can resonate with people, this should be able to. And so that's always bothered me. And I have wanted to see a sequel to Tron Legacy for so long. Specifically directed by Joseph Kosinski, because I think he's the perfect filmmaker to tackle this, given kind of his fascination with emerging tech and whatnot, his visual style as a filmmaker. Excuse me. And then just like, continuing what he did with Tron Legacy. But like this, it doesn't really move the needle for me, these comments. It makes me optimistic, but like, we'll see what happens. I know there are some people inside of Disney that really want another Tron film to be made, and I think eventually it will be made. Whether it's a reboot or a sequel remains to be seen. So
so for me on the Tron movies, I've always kind of respected them more than I fully enjoyed them. I've never fully connected with the specific characters and plot lines, while being like, this is such a cool world. Tron Legacy, some of the visuals, beside like the de-aging doesn't fully work, but the other stuff is incredible. And then the soundtrack from Daft Punk, insane. I mean, just such a cool score to a movie. And my wife and the best man for my wedding, and I guess now you, all are huge, gigantic fans of the Tron movies. The original Tron's the favorite movie of the best man for my wedding.
Oh, really? Oh, cool. Yeah.
And like, he's done like costumes and stuff where he did the whole decked out and everything. This is the guy that was in Carnivores, the guy I mentioned last week that acted in Carnivores. Same guy. His favorite movie is Tron. And then my wife loves it too. So, she would go bananas if we actually finally got a actually got a sequel to Tron Legacy. All right, we got a couple more subjects on here, and then we'll close out the audio version of this, and then kind of just take some Q&A from the chat section. So we've got Gary Dauberman, who worked on Annabelle Comes Home, script writings on the It movies. He's lined up to do an adaptation of Salem's Lot. I'm not really familiar with the Stephen King book or previous versions of it, so I don't know I don't know the story. And if you look at his body of work over the last 5 years, it is hit or miss. It is like, you're like, this is incredible, this is top of the genre, and then it's like, more generic crap for the genre. So if you get the guy that was doing the first It, sign me up. Awesome. What was your take on him?
Oh, wait, for me? Oh, sorry. I thought you kind of cut out there, and I thought like you had I thought you were still talking. It's no, sorry. Yeah, no. I saw that was sorry. I don't mean for my face to just be completely blank. It was like in my ears, like Sean didn't like he cut out and that sentence didn't finish, and then it was just like he stopped talking. I was like, was there more to that? What was going on?
Whoops.
No, that was funny. In terms of like Salem's Lot, I think I think it's probably primed for an update for sure. The original's really good, but like it's similar to it. Like I think these Stephen King adaptations, they only get better. I think when you update them, they have less of like the I don't want to say tinge, but just like they're less dated, I guess. And so I don't mind getting updates of like some of the Stephen King movies. Not like, you know, The Shining, obviously. Like I would never want to see that, but like something like Salem's Lot, I'm okay with that. And Gary Doberman, it's an interesting pick because like I really believe in the guy and I want to believe in the guy. Like I think he's proven himself to, you know, he has the ability to tell a great horror story. It's just like you said, it's a little inconsistent. But you know, with the right source material here, I think it could work. And I'm gonna optimistically be on board with him tackling this kind of story. But you know, we could also get something like Pet Sematary. So
next subject on here, Bob Iger returns as the CEO of Disney. So we talked about this a few weeks back. Well, I guess before the world shut down, that Bob Iger, the longtime CEO of Disney, that basically is the guy that came up with their current strategy of acquire sure, easy, obvious hit brands, and then just crank out safe bet after safe bet and build these big, gigantic tent poles. Did that and printed enormous amounts of money for Disney. And generally speaking, if you look at him as a businessman, brilliant. If you look at him as, but when it comes to that side of Disney that they've been in the past known for being creative, for being, sparking the imagination, that is not Bob Iger. He knows how to make things that people want and they will pay money for, and did that. Like his strategy worked for the shareholders and made a bunch of movies that, you know, I've loved, but you can see where some of that creative spark is gone. So he's publicly made it known that he was looking to retire for a while, but at the same time, pretty suddenly left was February, I think. Stepped down, but didn't leave Disney, but stepped down as CEO. And then a month later, everything crazy went happen with the world. So he stepped back in. So, I heard some people having some speculations of, he couldn't step away. It's kind of like Jay Leno with taking back the show from Conan saying stuff like that. It's like, no, that's not what's happening here. It's the most obvious read is almost certainly what's happening. They had a guy that was in the job for 15 years, and a month after he left, and a world-changing event happened, and there's no reason he shouldn't come back. It's foolish for him to not come back. I don't think there's any other interpretation that's almost gross until we know more information. But there's a really obvious, there's a very obvious reason that he would come back after so quickly, and it's because the world got turned upside down.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that's definitely the case. I also, I mean, he didn't leave just yet, right? Like he was still around, and so like this, okay, so now he's just basically like temporarily going to like go back to doing his old position. Like it doesn't, to me, this isn't really like anything huge, or altering or life changing or whatnot. It's just, he's gonna be in there to like probably help the new Bob, out with some of like these unprecedented things that are going on. Right. It's just
anytime you have a leadership shift after someone's been in place for a long time, that in and of itself creates a certain amount of chaos because you have to figure out the relationship dynamics. Inherently, a new person shouldn't just do what the previous person was doing before, so there's going to be changes. So the idea that they'd be like, this is not the right time to do that. Let's go back to it.
Yeah.
Even the reason that Bob Iger didn't retire a year earlier was because of the Fox acquisition. and they didn't want to. They wanted to make sure that they had him in, so it went nice and smooth. So then afterwards, then he could move along to whatever he wanted to do next. This is the same thing. He's willing to help. He's willing to work. He loves Disney. He wants the best for Disney. He does want to move on to whatever's next, but he also wants them to succeed. And the world being locked down is a lot of chaos that you just bring in the guy that knows the relationships to get us through this. Makes total sense to me. All right, we've got a couple super chats. I'll get to those in just a few minutes. We got one more segment, and we'll close out the audio version of the podcast, and then we'll take your questions, starting with those super chats. So, big question of the day. Have you ever walked out of a movie? And I've got a couple of stories that were prompted by something yesterday. I shared the story on Twitter. Have you ever walked out of a movie?
Me? Yeah, I walked out of Gods of Egypt. I don't even know, maybe less than 20 minutes into the movie. I couldn't take it anymore. And I was dragged to it knowing that it was going to be bad. Dude, I had no idea it was going to be that bad. And so we walked out of Gods of Egypt and walked into Deadpool, and then everything was okay.
It's probably a wise choice. So I've got 2 times I've walked out of movies, and it's basically the same story. So back in the year 2000, I asked a girl from church out on a date. And we went to the movies. Of all the movies we could pick, American Psycho. Take a girl from church to go see American Psycho. Now, if you haven't seen American Psycho, this movie is like proudly as not church friendly as you can imagine. I mean, it's like the movie starts off with Christian Bale walking around naked in his house, watching pornography and on one TV and Texas Chainsaw Massacre on the other TV, prostitutes, axe murder. And so around the time that there's an orgy with a couple of prostitutes, we're like, I think we picked the wrong movie. And we left. Now, when I told the story in my tweet yesterday, I made it sound like I was the one that was like, hey, want to go see American Psycho? That's not what happened. She wanted to go see American Psycho. She's the one that was like, it's like a serial killer movie. Could be pretty cool. Like, okay. And like, we're 5 minutes into it. It's like, not a good first date movie. Not a good first date movie. Second one that I walked out of was Crank. Sort of the same story, except a few years later, I'm in Bible college and take a girl from Bible college to go see Crank, thinking it's going to be like The Transporter. Which, I mean, it's kind of like The Transporter, except that The Transporter drank a can of Red Bull and was influenced by Grand Theft Auto. And then injected heroin straight into the heart with some adrenaline. That's, the difference between the two. And so, another one I made about 30 minutes into is like, this isn't quite what we were thinking it was going to be. Yeah, so those are the 2 times I've walked out of movies. They were all, because they were dates with people from very churchy environments. It took them to hard R movies.
Someone said something in the chat that I thought was pretty funny. They were like, well, I mean, you didn't end up with her, so...
The first one.
Maybe this all happened for a reason. This is basically what he's saying.
The first one, that's true. Second one, we are married now. So, second one...
Okay. So you did... Oh, you took your wife to go see Crank. Okay.
Crank was my wife that I took on a date to go see Crank. So that one worked out all right. And so she was the one that's like, oh, it's like The Transporter. So that one's like kind of on her. She was the one that's like, cool. Jason Statham, Transporter. I love those movies. Not quite the same thing. The other one, the girl that I did not marry, we actually still are Facebook friends. So people keep asking me, have you rewatched the movies since then? It's like, yeah, I've watched both the movies and I enjoy them enough for what they are. I'm not like John Flickinger that has American Psycho as one of my favorite movies of all time or anything like that. But it's an interesting movie. If you can get through it, it's so bonkers and weird. And especially because it's Christian Bale and Reese Witherspoon and Jared Leto in this movie that's just bonkers. It's something special to be seen. So anyway, if you're listening to the audio version, thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to leave a review and a rating. It really does help the podcast in these early phases. And be sure to keep talking movies too much. All right, for those of you tuning in for the live stream, we're just going to take some of your questions and we'll go for, 10, 15 minutes, not quite sure. Go a little bit, kicking things off with some super chats that have come in. First one from our Dreamer Reviews. Once again, how would you guys fix Macy releasing the dinos at the end of Fallen Kingdom? So he's referring to at the end of the last Jurassic World movie, dinosaurs released. Then he says, to me, it's the equivalent to the abrupt, intact San Diego incident in The Lost World. Intriguing cliffhanger in Fallen Kingdom is amazing, but the setup feels off. So how would I fix that? I think that's part of the problem with it is it seemed like the movie set up a few too many different things that I just not really sure where they're going. Because like that movie clearly sets up human cloning, and it's like, now let's do something over here. It's like, wait, you just established human cloning and then moved on. And then the movie ends with, oh, by the way, dinosaurs are free. So I don't really know at all what their thought is for the plot. The title Dominion makes it sound like they're wanting to do, big, gigantic Planet of the Apes in the Jurassic Park world type story. But I don't really have a plot in mind because it is just so much of a like cliffhanger. Let's open the door. I don't feel that is particularly similar to Lost World, because Lost World was like a dinosaur doing Godzilla or doing King Kong. That's what that felt like to me. Like they had a story about the island, and then it was like, but I really want to have a big finale. Because that's not in the book. That like all that stuff, that's not how the book ends. That's like a Spielberg wanted a big finale, and so what can we do that's big and exciting? We'll take the T-Rex back to San Diego and have fun with that. But I feel like there's a much grander story to tell with a bunch of dinosaurs loose on the mainland that's not just doing Godzilla. I don't know what it is. I don't know how you capture the magic of dinosaurs doing that, but I think it's not just copying The Lost World.
No, I not at all. I don't even like to me. There's both films couldn't be any more different. Like dinosaurs are released onto the world, but like one, it's like literally just like Godzilla or King Kong or whatever, and then it's done. And then the other is like, well, okay, this is going to have repercussions going forward.
Right.
We're now living in a society where humans and dinosaurs are going to be forced to coexist with each other, or one dominant species is going to take over the other. And so then we get into like I've been saying, like a Planet of the Apes kind of thing, which to me is legitimately the only avenue you could take this story at this point. So yeah, in terms of how I'd fix it, I don't know how I'd fix it. I haven't seen Fallen Kingdom in a while, but I like where it left off. So,
and I think that's really the question: is what do you do with that? The animals being released at the end, and I think we tackled that. All right, next we're Eric Thorpe says Aaron Paul as Robin in the DCEU. I don't see that at all. No. As Robin makes no sense, because Robin is inherently the sidekick that's young. Aaron Paul is older than me. I'm 38, and he's older than me. I think he's 40 or 41 years old. So,
most importantly, Aaron Paul is older than Robert Pattinson.
Right, by like 8 years, yeah. 10-year gap, like that. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense. And so then the thought would be then Dick Grayson grown up. But if you did Dick Grayson grown up with Ben Affleck, I think there's a way to make that make sense. But Ben Affleck is out. So Robert Pattinson, who's like 31, with Aaron Paul that's 41. I mean, if you want a really interesting reinterpretation of the whole thing, maybe. But if you're going to do Robin, I think everybody wants to see it done right. And that's have probably like a 16, 17-year-old Robin in one movie, and then college student in the second movie, and then let him be Nightwing in the third movie or something like that. But let Dick Grayson grow up, and that's not 40-year-old man, and it's also don't get a kid. That's just child abuse.
I'll say something crazy, or that people probably don't want to hear. I like Batman better when he's not with Robin. I don't want to see Robin in this. If you want to take a page out of the Robin playbook and just bring in a Nightwing, I'm fine with that. But like I don't want to. I just I don't know. I've just never been a fan of the character. I think there are interesting stories that happen between Batman and Robin, and you know it causes Batman to evolve as a human, but I don't need him. You know, like and it just Batman. You can explore Batman's demons without like a child sidekick. You know,
I think that's what makes it tough. Is that to do the story interesting, you really have to be able to have the time to have him as teenager and then Dick Grayson as a grown-up. I think you have to be able to do all of that, which is a big commitment to Robin, to be able to like have this father dynamic and someone that grows up. And that's what's interesting to me about Robin. It's not like, and then Batman has a little kid go run around. Like, that's just not, who cares? Like, that doesn't add anything. It makes no sense. Like, if you're like, okay, this man that is peak of what you can build yourself into is extremely intelligent and has been trained for years, and he's bringing a kid that can do a backflip with him. Like, you just undermine your credibility pretty quickly when you do that. And so it's just really tough to do it properly. All right, John Early had a super chat. He said, I saw Shazam recently for the first time through a YouTube watch party. It reminded me of Josh Trank's Chronicle, Tom Hanks' Big, and Spider-Man Homecoming. Thank you so much for the super chat. Yeah, that's what makes that movie fun and interesting, is that it is a bit of a genre blender. That it has a lot of the stuff that you want from a superhero movie, but it has very obviously Big as a superhero movie. You have a kid in a grown-up body. You have that. You have the stuff that is kind of Spider-Man Homecoming, teenagers acting like teenagers, high school politics, all that stuff. So absolutely, I'd agree that it has a lot of that in there. How about you, Griffin?
Yeah, I mean, like they vocally said Big was an influence on the project when they were making it. So yeah, that makes sense. I mean, like Spider-Man Homecoming, the only sort of thing I get is the fact that they're both teenagers, so you get some of that like coming of age teen comedy and like relationships in there. But like I get a lot of like I'm trying to think of the right words. Like a lot of it feels like a Christopher Columbus movie.
Yep.
So like movies like the first couple Harry Potters, Percy Jackson, even though I know he didn't direct that, you get some of that in there. So like the mythical kind of like dark 90s family movies or whatever, you get a lot of that in there. So yeah.
Okay, next one. Iron Cap says, hey Sean, do you agree that Volume 2 is visually the most beautiful movie in the MCU? So I guess the question, do I think that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 is visually the most beautiful movie in the MCU? No? Is that something that a lot of people argue? I don't think I've heard a lot of people say that. Have you heard that, Griffin?
I mean, I've never heard that exact statement. I have heard like people like praise it for its visuals, which I agree. It's got some really great visuals in it. I kind of took it a step up from Volume 1, but like, yeah, I don't know what I would say is the most visually striking of like the MCU movies. That's kind of tricky. I don't know.
They're not known for being movies that have a distinct visual style. Some look better than others. Some look flatter than others. But it's not kind of like with the DCEU where it's like you watch a Zack Snyder movie and you go, oh yeah, that's a Zack Snyder movie right there. It's not quite like that.
Yeah,
So I don't have one that comes to mind, but
yeah, I honestly, now that I think about it, he's probably right. The both Guardians movies feel like they like the visions of someone of James Gunn at the helm, and so you get like a lot of like the visual splendor that he wants to infuse into it. So honestly, yeah, he might be right on that one.
So I think there's some things in there that I think are beautiful, and there's others like the whole third act to me. I just looks like CGI noise. There's just stuff moving around too quickly, and that's to me where I'm like, I don't know about that. And then other times where it's kind of like when they're doing the portal jumping and stuff like that, that it's Looney Tunes, And so there's things that are like, that's gorgeous, and then it's like, that's also a Looney Tunes cartoon with Rocket Raccoon and Yondu. So that's what
the same sort of thing happens with like Thor Ragnarok. Like there's some amazing visuals in that, but then like there's some piss poor CG in there, and it's just like it kind of takes the whole thing down. Honestly, and this might be kind of crazy. I think the most visually striking films in the MCU is just like the entire Phase 1 slate. Honestly, I take that back. Age of Ultron. Age of Ultron is probably the best looking MCU movie. Because that's like. It's got these like desaturated tones. There's a lot of there's like some contrast going in there. It's got like some beautiful images. I think I might go with Age of Ultron, or if not that, the entire Phase 1 of the MCU.
So if, like the ones that come to mind for me, I think you mentioned some of those shots in Thor Ragnarok, like Valkyrie in the clouds and stuff like that, or even Valkyrie kind of walking with fireworks behind her. Two very different looks, but like. Just when I think great shots, Thor Ragnarok has a bunch of them. And then I think Captain America, the First Avenger, because it has the design that they went for with a bunch of the stuff, I think is very, very cool looking. All right, a super chat from Random Movie Reviews said, please do top 10 favorite kaiju giant robots. I can't do that off the top of my head. I certainly wouldn't have that one as something I just know. I'd have to really think about that one. I don't know that there's that many movies for me that I immediately have a great list. What I can tell you is back when I was growing up, there were these two movies. One was called Robot Jocks. One of them was called Robot Wars, put out by one of these cheaper studios. And I remember watching those a whole lot, renting them from Blockbuster. And it's super low budget, but gigantic robot movies. And Robot Wars was marketed as a sequel to Robot Jocks, but it's not. They're just similar in nature, but like the box for Robot Wars said on it, like the continuation of the Robot Jocks. And so for years I was like, oh, I guess it's the sequel. I don't understand how the plot of these two movies goes together. And then jump down years later, Wikipedia's out there, and I read the Wikipedia page. It was like, oh, that they only did that to get dumb people like me to rent this bad movie Robot Wars. But that's my Robot Wars stories, Robot Jocks. Some bad ones from back in the day, but the Pacific Rim movies are some obvious ones that come to mind. But
I like those. Yeah,
you immediately have to start getting into deep cuts when you start to talk about some of that stuff. And I'm not. If you're not into that world of movies, they're deep cuts, and there's like 4 or 5 that are mainstream blockbuster stuff, and then it's all the deep cuts. All right, next question we have. We're getting a ton of comments about this one, about the beard. So Levi says, sick beard, Sean.
Yes. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for you to address that. Yeah.
You are correct. It is. It's getting pretty nice. The wisdom on the sides with the gray, and then the puffed out. I definitely used some nice hair product to get my beard to look as poofy as possible. As we continue to get I go crazier and crazier as I'm locked in my house. Okay. I've seen this question a bazillion times over this deal. Carson asks, have you seen The 100? It's a show on the CW. I haven't. I haven't seen a single episode of it. Have you seen The 100?
No. I have a friend who loves it, but I don't watch it. I really don't watch any of the CW shows.
Yeah, I'm phasing out Arrowverse stuff, but that's all that I watch on there. It's a network aimed at a demographic, and I haven't been that demographic since before the CW existed. All right, here's one directly for you. It's a super chat. Thank you so much for the super chat. Griffin, how was your experience at the Rise of Skywalker premiere? If you guys don't know, Griffin lives in LA, and he actually got to go to the premiere of a Star Wars movie, Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. So just kind of walk us through that clip, the experience of what is it?
Yeah, it's like a big event. Like you walk up and you go into a tent, you pick up your badge that allows you to literally go in. You're surrounded by the rest of Hollywood. Like they're just like random people. Like I saw like and no one would ever know who this person is, but like I do because I follow the industry and stuff like that. But like Scott Z. Burns, the guy who directed The Report last year, and then also wrote some of the Bourne films. He was just chilling over there.
Yeah.
And so like you go through that and like you just see random people like that, bigger and smaller names, and you walk through this pathway. And the cool thing about the Star Wars premiere is that they really do it up, and they have all these like props and arts everywhere, or sorry, concept art and like photos and stuff everywhere. Just it becomes like a whole experience of you walking up to the theater. And so you can take your picture of places, and then eventually you go into like the Dolby Theater, and then you get seated to watch the whole movie. And while we're sitting there, I can't even remember who all was around me. Like Seth Green, I think, sat next to me. Pedro Pascal was up at the front. A lot of the cast from the Mandalorian was like up a little bit ahead of me. Amy Adams was like over here. Like there was like it's a weird scenario to just like be in an event, like just say, hey, I'm here to review your movie, and like here's a whole bunch of Hollywood basically here. Pete Wentz from Fall Out Boy was there. Like what I kind of figured out was that a lot of these like celebrities, they pull out their celebrity card for the Star Wars premieres or the Marvel premieres to take their kids because they're there with their kids. So it's like, it's just a weird experience, and then you leave and you go to this after party and there's like just a whole bunch of food and whatnot. But for me, it was a surreal experience just because I've been a Star Wars fan my whole life. And while the movie sucked, the actual event and going and just like seeing the movie for the first time with a crowded audience and like seeing all these cool props and just like art from the movie and whatnot, like that's just something that I'll cherish forever for sure.
Very cool. Take this one real quick. Do you have high expectations for A Quiet Place 2? I wouldn't say I have good expectations. I expect it to be a movie that I'll enjoy and is good and is a respectable follow-up to the original one. I don't think it'll match kind of the freshness. I don't expect it to like be quite as unique and emotionally resonant, but I think it'll be a worthy follow-up that has interesting ideas that expands the mythology. How about you?
Yeah, I've heard that from people who have seen, because they did do
they started
one or two press screenings before this whole thing shut down. I've heard people say that it's as good, if not better, than the first one. Basically, Krasinski just kind of like hones in on crafting like the experiential elements, like the sound, and the atmosphere and whatnot. So if that's the case, I am very, very excited. I have high expectations for this movie.
Very cool. And that's actually, before we move on to that, so we were supposed to go see this at the Austin. If you guys don't know this, we've mentioned on the podcast many times before, but Griffin was supposed to be in town for South by Southwest. The week of South by Southwest, we were going to cut out to go to the Austin press screening of A Quiet Place 2. And I'd even like there's several of us, and they'd emailed the people and they got on the list. So there's going to be like 4 of us from 4 different states going to go see it, which is going to be pretty cool. And then, of course, the movie got delayed and South by Southwest got canceled. So that's unfortunate. But next one on here, got a super chat, once again, from Azim the Dream Reviews. Did y'all see Jurassic World short Battle at Big Rock? It gives just a little taste of what the tone of Jurassic World 3 will be. By the way, the original cast has major roles in Jurassic World 3. So there's two things in there. One is there's a short that they put out, 3-4 months ago. Not quite sure how long ago it was. Yeah. And then, have we seen it? I don't think I have. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't. No.
So it's one of those ones that I just assumed it was kind of a goofy little thing that wasn't worth checking out, and then it turned out it wasn't. I was wrong. But it was, in the world of movie news, things just move so fast that sometimes if you don't catch it right on the wave, you miss it. So I didn't check it out. Second one is he says that the original cast will have major roles in Jurassic World 3. I really hope, really hope that's actually true in the way things play out. Moving through some of these things, talking on this Robin conversation. Jeffrey Vlogs YouTube, do you think Tom Holland as Robin would be cool? No. And it's one of those ones that if he hadn't been cast as Spider-Man 5 years ago, if 5 years ago he'd been cast as Robin, sure, cool, yeah, he can be fun, he can act, he can be serious. He's a lighter character than. But do I want Spider-Man cast as Robin? No. And even if he was cast right now, he's going to be 25, 26. Starting as Robin. It misses. It's like everything I don't want them to do. I don't want grown-up Robin from the start, if you're going to call it Robin, and I don't want to see Spider-Man. I don't want to see other movie character playing Robin. So not crazy about that one.
Yeah, I mean, like Tom Holland, it's kind of funny because I don't know how many people really would have known who Tom Holland was before he was Spider-Man. Like, I mean, he had done like a lot of great films beforehand, but like he wasn't like a household name like he is now. So like, I don't even know if he would have been on people's radar had he not been Spider-Man. But no, I don't want to see that.
Yeah. And I think what happens is that most people, they see like 10 new movies in the theater every year. They're kind of the general kind of number of actors they're aware of is limited, and the number of movies that they're very much present on their mind are these big gigantic blockbusters that everybody talks about. So then it creates a scenario where you have a list of about 20 people that everybody knows, and so those names just kind of keep getting recycled in conversations when there's 7 billion people on planet Earth, and the idea that the only person that can play Spider-Man and Dick Grayson is Tom Holland. You go, okay, there's somebody better. There's someone else that's not already so prominently tied to something else. And even to the level, like, why would Tom Holland go from playing Spider-Man to playing Batman's sidekick? Like, what's in it for him?
Yeah.
Like, why would he do that? And there's a lot of different things like that. But so my answer with almost any time we're talking about casting a comic book character, I don't want them to look at this list of 10 to 20 characters or actors. I want to dig deeper. I want to find that up and comer. So like back in the day, like Henry Cavill had been acting for years, and 10 years before he was cast as Superman. He was in The Count of Monte Cristo with Jim Caviezel and Guy Pearce. 10 years before he was cast as Man of Steel. And he
auditioned for James Bond before Daniel Craig got it. Daniel Craig just beat out Henry Cavill for Bond in Casino Royale. And so, like, yeah, he had been around for a while.
And casting directors knew who he was. Everybody knew this guy just has a leading man charisma. He's handsome. He'll commit to, like, transform himself. Like, they all knew that. They just hadn't found the iconic role for him yet. And so, Chris Hemsworth, what like this massive standout in Star Trek 2009. He's in the movie for under 10 minutes, and you just see like there's something about this guy that pops. And so like there's all these guys out there and girls out there that are massive talents that the talent agents know that, but we don't fully know that yet because they haven't had that thing that exposes us to how good they are. And there's a bunch of people that they've got their break on TV and they haven't made it into movies yet. And I think that's where I want to look. Like, who's the next James Bond? I don't want Tom Hiddleston. I don't want Tom Hardy. I love Tom Hiddleston. I love Tom Hardy. Had they not had all the roles they've had the last 10 years, those are some interesting choices. But I don't want Bane. I don't want Eddie Brock playing James Bond. I don't want Loki playing James Bond. I want someone new, and there's enough talent out there. So that's my default to any of it. If they cast someone obvious, I'm not going to be cynical about it. I want to be entertained. I want to like things, but that's just like, that was my take when they cast Ben Affleck. I was like, I don't want to see Daredevil, and I don't want to see movie star Ben Affleck, but at least in Batman v Superman, I thought he did a great job. So here's one kind of, this one's been popping up in there. Saul John, do you read comics? If so, what are some of your favorites? So I read graphic novels. I don't subscribe to any issues or something like that. I think they when I was like 13, I realized, wait, what are they doing with all these gimmicks with these tie-ins? I'm not going to do that. But I mean, I've got just right here, So speaking of James Bond, because it's a James Bond book, I just have a big stack of graphic novels, even right here. But so I love like a lot of the Batman graphic novels, Batman Year One, Dark Knight Returns, of course, Long Halloween, Dark Victory. I recently read, my buddy Andy loaned me out, 0 Year for Batman. The Ultimates, there's kind of the version of the Avengers the movie's based
those
on.
Are good. Yeah,
it's like a pocket universe, and so then those ones I really enjoyed. Of course, Watchmen. So that's some of the obvious stuff, but let's see what I have right here. Flashpoint is one that I haven't quite read yet, but that's been at like top of my list. There's my copy of Ultimates. There's Alien 3, the alternate version of it. They took an original script before the movie that we got, turned it into a graphic novel. That's one that I read last fall. So, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, like I used to go to the comic shops like fairly regularly and buy single issue comics, but then it just became too difficult to like keep track, keep up with it, and then just like it became a lot of money. So I would buy like what you're talking about, like the kind of like the trade covers once those were finished, and I'd read through like different stories that like interested me. But I haven't really delved too hardcore into comics in a while. I think the last thing I read was the short run called Grayson, which is basically like Dick Grayson as like a secret agent, and it's friggin' fantastic. It's so good. Highly recommend reading Grayson. But yeah, I haven't really like read anything since then. That was like maybe 2 years ago.
Next one on here is super chat from Eric Thorpe. What about Justin Theroux as Batman? I think he'd be amazing, having watched him in HBO's The Leftovers up against Joaquin Phoenix Joker. So like non-DCEU. It's a weird question to me in the sense that we already know who Robert Pattinson is, our Batman. So it's kind of entirely in a its own like theoretical question because we're not looking to cast Batman. I haven't seen enough of him to see it. He's not one that immediately comes to my mind. Like most recently, I watched him in Charlie's Angels 2, Full Throttle. You actually gave that to me. You gave me a copy.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So that's the place where I last saw him, and it's obviously a very campy movie. But I haven't seen him in enough things to be able to visualize him as an actor that's not just side character that's fun, but leading man and Batman.
Yeah, no, I don't see him as Batman. I just don't think it's a good casting choice. I haven't, like, just based off of everything he's done and like him as an actor, it's just no. Like there are better choices out there.
And I think that's the thing. It's like I don't have any big issues with him. There's just a lot more people that seem like more obvious choices. People that it's like, okay, there's a lot more lineup here. There's a lot more obvious positives with any number of these people over going with him. And it's also, I mean, like, Bruce Wayne is a character that inherently the role demands multiple different parts because you're playing actual Bruce Wayne who's sitting there with Alfred. He's playing public persona. He's playing the Batman character. Like, there's a lot to it that I don't see him as the person to do that with.
Yeah.
Here's an interesting one. What do you think about the budget of Scorsese's new film, Killers of the Flower Moon, which is reportedly $200 million? It feels to me like Scorsese's getting indulgent. I believe it's based off a book. I haven't read the book. But when suddenly, like, Scorsese, does this big, expensive de-aging drama for Netflix, and then he's like, I need $200 million to do this book adaptation, it's tough for me to have an immediate positive interpretation of that. But I don't know enough about the source material to be able to comment too much. Do you know more about it?
I believe part of the reason why it's so expensive is because they wanted to shoot on location in like in some of the Native American reservations where like part of the story takes place and like use the actual people. And so like part of the reason why it is so expensive is like Scorsese wants to make it culturally authentic and like highlight these environments and these people, which is part of the story. To which case I say, go for it. Absolutely. It should, like, in my mind, I don't really care like how much money Scorsese wants for a movie. He should be able to make the movie he wants. He's done so much and he's proven himself as a filmmaker already. Like, why shouldn't he be allowed to make a $200 million movie when, like, Marvel films are being made for that amount, and they, so not all of them contribute to cinema in the way that like Scorsese has. I'm not like dissing Marvel films by any means. I love them, but I'm just like saying, like, they're like, yeah, it can be indulgent. Obviously, like, those kind of movies aren't going to make the box office returns. But like, I'm pretty sure The Irishman made its money back on Netflix. I mean, I would think.
It's tough to know with the just with the way the Netflix model works. What I don't know what their metrics are, and they don't release They frequently don't. They only release numbers when they're trying to be like, look at this, and so it's a little bit tricky to even interpret some of what the data means. That's what's hard to know what to make of some of that. But I'll play the other side to it of it's the movie business. Money is and that's where I see some of these ones where even like, well, they have to go to the Native American reservations, and I go, that doesn't sound like a movie that's going to make back that $200 million.
Sure, yeah.
When a Martin Scorsese budget at that level, and so I just
there's also the argument that Paramount has dumped that much money into like crap projects that have made nothing.
Yeah.
Right. So and so when you have that idea, when they're like dumping that stuff into like, I think someone brought up the movie Wonder Park for example, like that was like a $150 million movie or something like that, and then it becomes like, okay, so you're spending money on stuff like that, but you don't want to cough up an extra $50 million for Scorsese to make a movie that will guaranteed make more money than Wonder Park. Like, come on.
I'll give you those ones, and I'll say when he goes from directly from a big expensive Irishman to his next one, 200 million, that's where I see a little bit of like, is this guy forgetting how to make cheaper movies? I have a little bit of that. I have a little bit built into me of when you the one that always makes me cynical about these numbers, at least in the year 2020, Invisible Man. Like, oh yeah, look what he just did for under $10 million. And then Martin Scorsese saying he needs to have 200 million. I go, I think that there's a side to it. Some of these guys are just in Hollywood a little bit too long, and they get a little bit too used to studios saying, here you go, here's a check, here's some money. I think there's some of that happens, and you have some guys that they stick to a little bit more their roots, and they can keep finding how to make a lot with a little. So that's a little bit of my cynical side, skeptical side, interpreting it maybe a little bit too negative. But my gut reaction when I saw that number was like, really? Does he really need 200 million to tell this? Or
and I get that. Yeah, I get that. All
right, here's another question we've been getting a lot in the chat, and we'll close out in just a couple more questions on here, and I think we'll close out. So maybe we'll do a quick lightning round if there's some quick questions we can do at the end. Death Awaits asks, how would you feel if they made a Jaws remake? I just don't know what you remake about it. I don't know how you interpret that because if you do a remake, you need to be able to do something new with it, or technology needs to change, or society needs to change, so that there's a new interpretation. So like classically, most people hate the idea of a Back to the Future remake. I totally get why. I think the concept of Back to the Future lends itself to being done at different time periods, because like a 2020 teenager going back to 1990 is interesting in a different way that Marty McFly going from 1985 to 1955. Those are two interesting ideas. So that, to me, when I think what remakes make sense to be done, it's one where the concept changes with time. I would say Back to the Future, that would apply. Or technology changes to where you do a remake and you could just do it a lot better. You can do what you couldn't pull off before.
Yeah.
What is improved with Jaws? Nothing.
Yeah.
What has changed about society? What do you say?
Yeah, nothing. I just, no, it's just a terrible idea, flat out. I just, because that movie is still effective today, effective today as it was back then. It still scares people. It still keeps kids from going into the water. Not even kids, like even adults still. Like an entire generation of people was terrified of going into the ocean or going to beaches because of that film. You can't replicate that impact. And, if you want to see a remake of Jaws, you can go watch Deep Blue Sea, Open Water, like a whole bunch of other Jaws remakes or ripoffs that just aren't good. And so and it's what they would do if they did a Jaws remake.
they would want it to be a blockbuster, and so they would give it the blockbuster treatment. So, I mean, technology would be better. They'd be able to do much better shark stuff. But what made Jaws great, and like this isn't, my original thoughts, but widely regarded, one of the reasons Jaws is so good is you don't really see the shark much.
Exactly.
And there's all these things that they did because the technology didn't work is what makes the movie so good. And if you want, it's that movie, if it came out now, would be praised still, but it wouldn't be the blockbuster it was before because the way people go to the movies has changed. And so they would, to get people to buy tickets, they would, just get over the top ridiculous. And it would be The Meg. It would be.
It would be
all these other movies that are just, there's a lot more spectacle, a lot bigger stuff happening. But it's a movie that just, it was the perfect movie for the 70s to launch Spielberg's career and invent the blockbuster. That's the movie that kind of invented this idea of lines forming around the block that just, it's like a perfect movie for the perfect time that there's just nothing for the movie that makes sense to update it at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. Yeah.
All right, we got one more super chat from Azim the Dreamer Reviews. He says, if y'all could take one important element out of the Dark Knight trilogy to put into the Batman movie, so take something from Nolan's films and put it into Matt Reeves' Batman movies, what would it be?
I mean, it would be Heath Ledger's Joker, right?
I don't know. It's tough to know because we don't have a trailer. Without a trailer, that's for me. It's tough to have an answer without knowing the vibe because the Heath Ledger's Joker was perfect for the world that was created, but I don't know what Matt Reeves' world looks like. So it's a little bit tough to say because of course Heath Ledger's legendary, Oscar worthy, and then other things that made that world so great. Some of it is because it was a contained pocket universe. That it doesn't have the rest of the world. It doesn't go fantastical. It doesn't have some of the weird stuff. And so I don't know what translates to Matt Reeves' world because I think it's going to be weird. It's going to be more comic booky. So without seeing that trailer, getting that tone, I don't really know. That's the way I perceive these things. It's not, this really worked in Nolan, therefore it'll definitely work over here. Let's just plop it over. I have to know what the vibe is.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's because you're right. Even Heath Ledger's Joker, I mean, he's very like punk rock. He's very fit. It's a very realistic interpretation. And like while Matt Reeves is while his film will be grounded, it feels a little more stylized. Yeah, I guess a little bit more comic booky than Nolan's film. So like you're right. Like even Ledger's Joker wouldn't fit over, but like. If we're just going at face value, I mean, I would just say that because I would want to see more of that character, I'd want to see what Heath could do in another movie.
And there's a little bit tagged on that question as well, different direction. Azim the Dream Review says, also, I just started my channel. Do you think trailer reactions versus trailer reviews? So I guess he's asking a YouTube question. For me, I do trailer reactions because that is the package which seems to get more clicks. The idea of, I'm not interested in people sitting there watching me watch a trailer. That's not, I like the exchange of ideas and talking about things. So when I do a trailer reaction, I do the reaction for people that are interested. I'll do that and I'll do my best to kind of make it the best environment and do my version of that. And then it's a trailer review at the end. So that's what I try and do with mine. I think there's a little bit more audience for the trailer, that calling it a trailer reaction. There's more people looking to click on that. But then I do a trailer review. So I try to do both. That's what I do. If you show a whole trailer, you also, most of the time, will get dinged. They'll claim your stuff so that you can't make money off of it. If you're just starting out, you don't need to worry about that. But like for me, a lot of these studios, I don't make any money on trailer reactions. I just think I'm more concerned with the long term of getting someone to like my channel, watch my content. And so I'd rather lose $2 or whatever on a trailer reaction, but get an audience of people to watch. So that's my reasoning and logic with things.
No, I think that's probably good.
All right, here Oh, sorry. Did you add a?
Oh no! I was just gonna say I think that's probably good advice because I mean I don't even do trailer reactions, so it's
All right, I'm going to try lightning through some questions. Red Panda says, what are your thoughts on a Back to the Future reboot? As I said before, I'm for a remake of Back to the Future, but I did an editorial explaining what I mean by that. All the awful versions you're thinking, I don't want the awful version. I think there's an argument for it. Griffin, I'm sure you would say don't do it.
Yeah, I don't really want to see a reboot of a classic. I'm always dubious of that. Like even something like Night of the Hunter, which was what like announced, which is this incredible classic movie with Robert Mitchum, super disturbing and whatnot. Even that, where it's like I can see a modern reimagining of it to fit the current context. It's just like I don't want to see it. Remake movies that would benefit from a remake, not movies that are already just bona fide classics and timeless,
And my argument would be that there's a central theme or central idea in Back to the Future. Present day high schooler goes back and spends time with his parents for a week in the past that I think is interesting, and it's entirely different now versus when it came out in 1985. That's what I think. That's the recyclable idea. I'm not like, let's do it. 1985 kid goes back to 19. That's a terrible idea. I don't even know if it would be Marty McFly, but I think you get like Lord and Miller, and you take that central idea. Modern day high schooler goes back in time. The jokes are all different. The context different. That's the idea that works. But I have a video that pitches that. Tony did movie reviews. Chappie D9 Neil Blomkamp, #1 fan. That is a long name. Says, hey Sean and Griffin. Do you think Josh Trank's Boba Fett would have been good? I'm going to go with probably not, because I don't think Josh Trank was mature enough to handle a production of that size. I imagine he probably is a very talented storyteller and creative, but being a director of a movie is basically being the CEO of a company that creates a movie. And you have to be able to work with people. You have to have a lot of stress on your shoulders. And that's where I think a lot of people kind of miss how do some of these guys that on the one hand we think, they're like, how does Michael Bay keep getting all these movies? Well, because he's the CEO of a company that's very profitable and he can handle the stress of it. And there's people that just can't do that. There's that side to it that you just have to think about, the actual experience of having that much weight on your shoulders. You're responsible for creating a product with 300 million of someone else's money, and then they're going to market it, and they're going to spend hundreds of millions of dollars to market this film, and then they want it to make $1 billion, and they might put it out there, and maybe it'll be profitable, but people are going to crap on you because you're Michael Bay, and you're making movies that make money, but critics hate them. There's a side to that people don't think about or talk about enough. And it seems from rumors that are not, I cannot in any way, I don't know if any of this is true. The rumors were that he kind of snapped on set. He was like trashing hotel rooms. Maybe he was showing up stoned. The pressure of moving from doing Chronicle, which is a small little indie thing, to being over this $150 million company that is Fanforstic. He snapped under that pressure. And that's where I just don't think, that's where I would guess is the problem there.
Yeah, no, I don't think it would have been good. I just don't think. I think you're right. He hasn't proven himself as a filmmaker. He made one good movie that was very specific to a certain style of filmmaking, and everything else has just led me to believe that he's, one, not a good person, and two, not the person you put in charge of a huge tentpole film like this. And quite frankly, I don't even want to see a Boba Fett film. The only person who could do a Boba Fett movie that would get me remotely interested in it would be Joe Johnston. And that's just because he's been with Lucasfilm since those early movies.
And you just want him to do a Star Wars movie.
No, I just want him to do something, man. Give him Indiana Jones. Like, I don't care. Like, like the man needs to make movies.
What was the apparently last movie he directed?
Oh God, I don't even know. Like, I think it was like some straight to VOD film, some like weird, like 90s inspired action movie, I think, which is just weird.
I forgot to comment on that though, but like, I don't want a Boba Fett movie. Like, I hate the idea of a Boba Fett movie.
I hate the idea. Yeah.
I don't like the idea that he's a clone of the clone troopers. Like, I don't like any of that stuff. Like, it's taking this mysterious character and like suddenly giving him this mythology that's like, I don't like anything you're doing with this. I much prefer, let's just have a different Mandalorian, and it's a Western and Star Wars world, and I already have that. So, I have the thing that I want with a person that looks like Boba Fett, and Josh Trank doing that just does not sound interesting to me. All right, Joe Johnston, pulling up on my phone. Dun, dun, dun. Filmography. Oh, he did the Nutcracker. Did he? Yeah, director.
No, he may have come in to do some reshoots for that, but he didn't actually direct that film. I know he's working on the fourth Narnia movie right now, which is just weird to me. But
you were thinking Not Safe for Work, a thriller
Yes.
from 6 years ago. So he was the reshoot director for the Nutcracker 2 years ago, which was not a good movie. Then he did Not Safe for Work, and so then before that is Captain America. Yeah, this guy needs get this man back doing something more meaningful. All right, Matthew Taylor says, "Have you watched Community?" I'm rewatching it right now. So I watched it back in the day. I didn't finish it, but I watched a lot of it, and I mean, I loved season 1 and 2. And then it lost my attention as it kind of went along, but loved kind of the second half of season 1 and season 2. Rewatching it right now. I'm in the middle of season 2. Showed my kids the paintball episodes, and they just ate those up. So, how about you? Your quick take on a Community?
I haven't watched enough. I mean, like okay, let me retrack. I have watched enough of it to like appreciate it, but I haven't watched the whole thing. But it's fun. It's funny.
What have you watched?
I just finished rewatching The Office. Actually, we've just like watched the last episode last night, and that was a fun journey. It also reminded me how not great season 9 was until the end. Also, one small gripe I have with a otherwise perfect finale: why did they not use Michael more? Like they literally had Steve Carell there. Why did they not just like, I don't know, give him more lines, have him come to the after party, have him be with everyone at the end when they're like reminiscing and stuff, give him a final testimonial. It just, like, I get he left the show, but like Michael was the show.
Yeah.
Like he was frustrating.
Yeah. But I meant to ask, what of Community have you watched? Like how much of Community have you watched?
I've seen like some random episodes. Probably like I think I've seen like the first season, maybe a little bit of the second. And some just like random episodes here and there.
Because it's a tricky show. Because if all you did was watch the first 6 episodes, that does not in any way let you know what it is. And then you could also just watch like the paintball episode and be like, you think it's this other thing, but then a lot of the show isn't that. That's why it's such a weird show, because it like. They didn't figure out at all what they wanted it to be until over halfway through the first season.
Yeah.
And then they went bonkers with that for a while, and it was awesome, but also bonkers. And if you guys don't know, basically Community is this show about these people in a study group at a community college, but it goes crazy at a certain point in time. And so they do a paintball episode that's like an action movie. And the first one was directed by the guy that did the Fast and Furious movies. And so it's legitimately like a send-up of action movies. And then they did one that's a send-up of zombie movies. And then like they started doing these send-ups of genre. And so it just gets really weird. And the Russo brothers were heavily involved with the show. And they did a follow-up to the paintball episode, which is also a paintball episode. It was directed by one of the Russos once again. And that's the episode that Kevin Feige watched. And he went, I'm going to have these guys come in and see if they want to do a Marvel movie. Like, the show Community is what led to Endgame in this very weird sense of that was their proving ground, was doing these paintball episodes. So if you want a little bit of background on some stuff, quick question on this one, and there's one more super chat and we'll be done. How about director from the new Jumanji movies, Jake Kasdan, for Fantastic Four? I'm game. I'd be for it.
I guess I don't really have any thoughts on him as like a filmmaker. I mean, the Jumanji movies are fun, and they're family oriented, and like the group dynamic is good. I guess he could do a good job. I don't know. It's not a very exciting name, but like, sure.
Adventure, ensemble, lighthearted, but some cool action. I think there's several things in there that make it good. There's some people spamming questions in the chat. Like if you do that, sometimes I just ignore you. Especially if you're asking a question that I don't know why you're asking it. Like asking a question 10 times in a row, it's like I'll just immediately not answer your question because what you're doing is not fair to everyone else. Because if I haven't answered it and you've posted that many times, it's probably not a question that I have an interesting answer to. Eric Thorpe with the super chat. Thank you so much. Griffin, what is your take on the James Bond continuity? The Daniel Craig series is the only confirmed reboot in the franchise, even in the Pierce Brosnan movies that are distinct references to earlier 007.
Well, yeah, I mean, like the Craig films are like it's very obvious that is like a continuity of itself, and I would almost bet money that whatever the next movie is, Bond 26, moving away from Craig, it won't reference those films. It'll be its own like little, five movie arc. I like it. I have no issue with it, and I think it helps the character. It allows the character to evolve in a more intuitive way. But yeah, I mean, like, even I think people forget, like, even some of the earlier Bond movies, like For Your Eyes Only is kind of like the conclusion to what happened in the events of On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So like there is continuity through those movies. It's just it isn't as clear as it is in the Craig films, if that makes sense. So I like it, but then like I can also like I have no issue with there not being continuity and having Bond go off on like one one-off adventures and whatnot. I just think going forward, the character has to we have to continue to explore who the character is as a person. We can't go back to like what they used to do in the 70s and 80s or 70s and 60s and stuff like that. That part of the Craig legacy has to continue forward.
And along those same lines from Golden Pictures, have you seen the original hour-long Casino Royale from the 1950s?
Yes, but did you watch that yet?
I didn't.
Actually?
I didn't. So we, if you guys don't know, we're doing a series of rankings of the different Bond movies, and the next video we're doing was kind of the junk drawer one, which was going to be the two Daltons, Lazenby, 60s Casino Royale, and then the TV one, where we kind of talked about all those kind of projects that, like, Lazenby ranking wouldn't be very interesting because I think what would be in first and last. But so put all those together. So I haven't watched it yet. But give me your quick take on this very oddity that nobody talks about.
It's just a spoof movie. It's like it kind of reminiscent of like the Pink Panther films and stuff like that. So it's like it's not even you can't even like include it in Bond filmography, but it's kind of funny. But it's not great, if that makes any sense. He does mention something that is kind of cool. So Pluto TV is a free, I believe, streaming service or whatever. I'm not entirely sure what it is, but you can go watch like all of the Bond movies, or at least most of the Bond movies, on there now for free if you're interested. I believe it's for free. I'm not 100% sure, but Pluto TV is pretty great.
All right, we'll close out with me saying I haven't seen Papillion, I haven't seen Abe, I haven't watched Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I've only seen a couple seasons of The Big Bang Theory. A bunch of people have been asking me about all of that many times. Papillion was in there like 1,000 times. Like, I don't know where this is coming from. Like, I've been getting those comments on my videos. Like, have you seen Papillion? It's like, why is everyone asking me about Papillion out of nowhere? Like, I don't understand what's going on. So anyway, have you seen Papillion?
No, neither the original nor the remake. So
there you go, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in, asking questions for the podcast, for the question part of all of this. It's been a ton of fun, and we're evaluating, looking at the numbers and looking at the response from as to whether we want to do the podcast live moving forward, or whether we want to go back to pre-recording them. Each has their advantages, so if you have any comments that you can leave in the actual comments, not the chat, but the actual comments to it, let us know if you dislike us kind of doing the live version of it. That would be greatly appreciated, but really, truly, thank you guys so much for caring what we have to say. It's just a blast getting to talk movies and have people join in with us. Griffin, thank you so much for tuning in. Where can people find you on the internet?
Yeah, you can head on over to the Film Speak channel for all the stuff I have going on over there. I think I'm going to put out a video today, hopefully if I can get it finished edited, but a video today talking about why I think the remake of The Others that was just announced, of the 2001 film with Nicole Kidman, why that whole concept of remaking that is a terrible idea. So if you want to hear my take on more remake culture, you can stay tuned for that. But then you can also follow me on Twitter at Griff Schiller.
There's a guy named Corvin. He asked a question. I almost answered it, and then he said, hey, wait, answer my question. So I thought I'll just go back real quick. Corvin at Video War Video says, do you think DC Extended Reviews will get better? I think it's been getting better. I think they're on a... DC Warner Brothers is on a really hot streak right now. So that's, we enjoyed Aquaman. Both of us really enjoyed Birds of Prey. Joker, not DCEU, but DC. Obviously a very good movie. So, and the Batman looks like it's going to be really good. So I think we both would say that they're on a really good streak. So, sure, yes. And on that note, see everybody next week. Bye-bye.
See ya.